Welcome to the Essential Skills for Humaning podcast, where we explore the fundamental abilities and insights that make us better humans. Here's your host, Christina Eanes.
Hi, everyone. Christina Eanes here for this episode of Essential Skills for Humaning. Today, I am excited to welcome Chad Foster. Welcome, Chad.
Hey, thanks, Christina. Appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Well, can you share a little bit about your background with our audience members?
Sure. So I have a somewhat unique story in that I grew up able to see, played sports, played football, basketball, soccer, drove a car, all the things. And then in my late teens, early 20s, started losing all of my eyesight, going blind to an inherited eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa. It was the family eye disease that nobody knew about, inherited. My parents could see fine. My brother can see fine. No issues at all. So it was the hidden family eye disease because it's autosomal recessive. So I went blind in college, lost about 3 years of university work, had to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up because it sure wasn't a blind person. That wasn't on the list. And relearn how to learn and figure out life. And today I am a better person because of it. I'm happier and I'm more successful today than when I could see, which I used to take for granted. Thought that was sort of normal. I just did what I had to do to get by. And looking back in retrospect, I realized it's not all that common. So now I like to teach people the anatomy of resilience and help them not be victims of their circumstances and empower them with the tools that they can use to shift their mindset and think more resiliently about a given situation so that they can also live happier and more successful lives. And so I do that through keynote speaking. I do that through executive coaching. And I also do that with the book that came out a few years ago, Blind Ambition. And I'm working on a training course as well. So I want to help people live their happiest, most successful lives.
I love it. Yeah. Well, and I mean, I love it. What is it? Post-traumatic growth. I think adversity is a gift for us to change, if we turn it into one. So today we're talking about embracing discomfort. Can you share a little bit about how that relates?
Gosh, my entire life has been an experiment of living outside of my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. So one of my 5 pillars, the fourth pillar, when I talk about the anatomy of resilience, there are 5 pillars. One of those is choose your response. The second one is tell yourself the right stories. The third one is visualize greatness, even in unfavorable circumstances. The fourth one, get comfortable with discomfort, possibly my favorite. And then the fifth one is take advantage of your disadvantages, because every perceived disadvantage offers us some advantage if we use it in the right context. But the fourth one, I think, is so interesting to me, get comfortable with discomfort, because it's where growth happens. If you're never getting outside of your comfort zone, then you'll never grow. That's where life begins. It begins outside of our comfort zone. And that's actually where my entire life has been. So growing up, not being able to see in real dark conditions as a young child, at 3 or 4 years old, my parents took me to Duke University because I was tripping over things in the dark. They diagnosed me with RP on the spot, the retinitis pigmentosa eye disease that I mentioned earlier. And then learning the limitations of my eyesight was really uncomfortable. I would learn that I couldn't see that well by bumping into things, tripping over things, going to the hospital. I was there so much that they questioned both me and my parents in separate rooms to see if they were beating me. But the truth is they weren't beating me. I was just learning the limitations of what I could see. And so that was physically uncomfortable. And then it became socially uncomfortable in certain situations in school, and emotionally uncomfortable when I couldn't drive a car at night, or when I couldn't do some of the sports that I wanted to do, like play football under the bright lights. That was really hard for me to do. And so there was the social, the emotional, the physical, all these discomforts. Then I went totally blind in college and had to flush 3 years of university work down the drain because I'd wanted to go into the pre-med field to help other people. But then after I went blind, I honestly wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to help myself. And so that was uncomfortable. And then I had a life-changing moment for me that helped me reevaluate what it means to be happy and what it means to be successful. I learned the true meaning of that when I went to get my first seeing eye dog. And that was great. And it was definitely a tipping point moment. But even then, when I returned to university with this renewed sense of hope and optimism with my German Shepherd seeing eye dog, here I was walking into university classrooms with a 100-pound German Shepherd, and then into job interviews, and all that was uncomfortable. And then eventually moving up the corporate ladder and getting jobs of increasing responsibility. There's the walking into boardrooms and proposal rooms and all these things with a German Shepherd. All that was very uncomfortable, and navigating all the social discomfort that came along with that, and learning how to disarm those situations with warmth and with competence. And then it continued as I started traveling the world without being able to see, with just me and my trusty guide dog, traveling to places as far-flung as Singapore and China and all over Japan and Europe and the Middle East and North America and South America and all these places without sometimes being able to speak the language or obviously read the signage, and just having a dog to guide me around. All that was uncomfortable. But what I continue to notice is that all that discomfort that I've experienced in my life, that I continued to experience, it expanded my comfort zone. And so the more discomfort I embraced, the more discomfort I was able to embrace, because that comfort zone just kept broadening. And now I crave discomfort. I do things like at 38 years old, as a totally blind person, I thought it'd be a good idea to learn how to downhill ski. Like, hey, this is a great idea. It sounds like it might be a good growth opportunity, and it has been. And so now I ski black and oftentimes double black diamonds. And less than 3 years ago, actually 3 years ago next month, I took up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Almost 46 years old, totally blind person. Wanted to be able to spend some time with my kids doing some activity. And obviously I can't teach them how to shoot a jump shot like I used to be able to do, or teach them how to kick a soccer ball like I used to be able to do. But now I can teach them proper technique to defend themselves using Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that's a really amazing martial art, because if you want to be comfortable with discomfort, I can't think of a better thing to do than to get on a mat and have somebody try and choke you or armbar you for 5-minute intervals throughout the course of an hour and a half, 2 hours each day. So it really helps you embrace discomfort, embrace fear. And it's taught me that, a lot of us have fear, a lot of us have anxiety for certain things. Jiu-Jitsu has taught me better than anything I've ever done in my life that fear is the direction of travel. A lot of people want to move away from the fear.
Yeah.
But the discomfort is the direction of travel. You want to move towards it. You want to learn how to lay down in the terror. Just settle down in the terror and get really comfortable and really relaxed in the fear, because then it doesn't control you. It can't control your decision making. And there's something really empowering about that, because, unlike most people, they might think that when you're competing in jiu-jitsu, you're trying to beat the opponent on the other side of the mat. And you are, and that's true. But the main opponent you're trying to compete with is yourself.
Yep.
The stories in your mind, the narrative that you've got, that little voice in your head. And so if you can get control of that opponent, you start to learn that it's not all about winning. Winning is great, and I want to win, but it's not more important than learning. And learning happens when you can clear your mind, you can embrace the discomfort, you can control your breathing and just get really comfortable in it. And so you're not going to win all the time, but if you embrace this beginner's mind, which is what jiu-jitsu teaches us, it's the beginner's mind all the time, then eventually you'll keep learning and learning and learning, and that will eventually lead to winning. But it doesn't happen overnight. It's very front-loaded to losing, which is why I guess a lot of people drop out of it, because it's very humbling.
Yeah.
But I think there's just so much to be learned from it, from an embracing discomfort, from managing fear, to embracing the unknown, and not being too scared to lean in and take that step forward.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Well, and that's the way that we expand it, right? Is constantly pushing ourselves to embrace that fear. What suggestion would you have for someone who's not used to doing that at this point? What that first step, which can be like the scariest.
Start small. So I'm all for having a bold vision of greatness, something really bold and inspiring. When I went blind, my pillar number 3, if you'll recall, is visualize your greatness even in unfavorable circumstances. I had to figure out how to make blind look good. If I couldn't, then I could never move towards acceptance. And so I had to reimagine a future that was bold enough to inspire me to take action, but grounded in the reality of my newfound situation, i.e. my blindness. And so I had to do that. And it's really important for that to be bold, But your first step outside of your comfort zone should not be. It should be the exact opposite of that. It should be very incremental, very small, something very small that doesn't have significant consequences if you don't succeed. So just use the metaphor. When I learned to ski, my first goal wasn't to go down a black diamond or a double black diamond. It was simply to figure out, how do I even get these bindings on?
Yeah.
How do I follow the guide's instructions well enough not to kill myself on the magic carpet, the little bunny slope or all these beginner things, because the consequences weren't too great. So it's really important, whether it's learning how to ski or taking on a new endeavor professionally, academically. I think you want a bold plan, something that's really big and scary, but your first step should be the opposite of that, because what you have to prove more than anything to yourself is that you're capable of more than you've been giving yourself credit for. And that is a true thing for all of us. I never thought I'd be where I'm at today. If you look back on your life, Christina, you probably couldn't imagine you'd be where you're at today. I think all of us have more potential than we give ourselves credit for. And sometimes it takes those small, consistent actions over time to prove it to ourselves. And then we start to realize, and if we just improve just 1% every week, that's over 17,000% improvement in a 10-year period. It's compound interest on incremental progress. And so how can you take the tiny steps outside of your comfort zone to expand it, to build the incremental progress, and to demonstrate to yourself that you can have that 17,000% improvement over a 10-year period? But it doesn't happen overnight, and it won't happen if you start off too big. It's take that first small step that feels like a stretch, but is a lot more manageable than the big scary step.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And do something that scares you a little every day. that the consistency.
Yeah.
Now, and you mentioned the thoughts, and I did my first zip line at 40. And I realized that as I'm standing up there, the more that you stand there and wait to jump, the less likely you are, at least in my case. Instead, I just just jump, so you're not thinking. So how do we, for lack of a better term, just jump and get through those thoughts that will hold us back?
Yeah, it is. It is taking that leap of faith. So I did the zip line, and it didn't bother me that much, but I'll tell you, I did have an experience 2 weeks ago. I was in Dubai doing a conference there, and my wife went with me, and we decided that we were going to go skydiving. We had never been skydiving.
Oh, wow.
And so we're in Dubai, and she wanted to go skydiving, and she wanted to do it over Palm Island over there, these huge man-made islands that you can see from outer space. Obviously, it didn't matter to me because I couldn't see anything. But she was excited to do it, and I think she was a lot more relaxed than I was. I was pretty uneasy about it, and we're getting on the plane. We book everything, and the day before, it starts getting in my head like, okay, am I really going to be doing this? I guess I am. And we go to the skydive facility, and we're, butterflies are building, and we're going through the emotions and trying to process everything. And I'm pretty nervous. And my instructor comes in. His name is Carlos. This guy's from Spain, and possibly the only man I've ever met who has more self-confidence than I do comes in. And he made me feel like he made my insecurities go away. Not completely, but it went from like a level of, I don't know, on a scale from 1 to 10, I was feeling like a 6 probably. Not petrified, but definitely feeling it. And I was still going to do it, but his confidence and understanding of what needed to be done probably put my anxiety at a 2. Just completely mitigated it. And then, I was glad to have him taking us up. But as we got on the plane, you start to have the butterflies again, and then I am the first person out of the plane, and I get up there, and it starts to hit me like, yeah, I'm really about to do this. This is really about to happen. And there's something really liberating about having the realization that we're not really in control of everything. I think we like to brainwash ourselves into thinking we can control everything, but we can't control what unfolds in our lives. Could I control going blind? No. Could I control whether or not that parachute opened? No. So I just decided that, you know what, I want to do this thing. And if it's in the cards that the parachute doesn't open, it's in the cards. Statistically speaking, odds are pretty low. Like it's probably less than, I don't know, 0.5% or whatever. And so am I going to not live out a dream that I've got, a goal that I have? Am I going to make a decision based on fear, or am I going to make a decision based on hope and optimism? And at the end of the day, you know, at that time, I just decided to settle into it and let it unfold as it's supposed to. And it was what was the most thrilling experience I've ever had in my life, jumping out of a plane at 120 miles per hour in free fall for over a minute, and then obviously parachuting down to the ground. And there was a sense of relief when the chute opened.
Yes.
not gonna lie, like, yeah, it opened. That's great. Okay. That was a nice, slowed us down quite a bit. That's good. And, you know, we landed flawlessly on the grass. He just slid us in like we were sliding into second base without any tension or bumpiness or anything. It was really impressive. But, you know, as you think about what you're going to do in your life, whether it's jumping out of an airplane or ziplining or, you know, applying for a job that seems like a stretch, or, you know, maybe it's a college application or whatever, what can future you live with? You know, can future you, if you're so fortunate enough to make it to your golden years and you look back on your life, and how will you feel? You've got essentially two paths you could take. The fear of pursuing some goal or some dream and maybe not being successful, or the fear of never knowing just how wildly successful your life could have been. So you never know what's possible if you don't try. So what I'm a big proponent of is I need to know where my edges are. So I want to push, and I want to try new things. And sometimes I hit a wall that's immovable. Sometimes I find a way around the wall or over the wall or knock the wall down, and I keep redefining my boundaries because I keep pushing. But if you never try, then you'll never know just how great your life could have been. And so the future you exercise is something I love to do because it helps me keep things in focus that, you know what, our time is limited. Our clock is ticking. None of us are getting a do-over as far as I know. And so how can I make decisions consistent with my values that don't let fear dominate my decision-making? I don't want fear to control me. Now, sure, I want to take precautions. I've got wife and 2 kids I want to come home to. It's important. I got to be careful and thoughtful, but also not mortgage my dreams for the sake of playing it safe.
Nice. Yeah, and something else too I heard from your story was Carlos, was the people that we're surrounding ourselves with. You know, are they supporting us embracing that discomfort? Or are they adding to us not embracing that discomfort?
Completely. We become the average of the 5 people we associate with. I really believe that. And so are you surrounding yourself with people who are helping you become the best version of yourself? Or are you surrounding yourself with people who are holding you back? And I think it's really important to be very intentional about who we surround ourselves with. I'm a very positive person. Obviously, to be as upbeat as I am in my situation, I'm really better off than what I was. I believe I'm a better person because I went blind. Sure, there are things that I'd like to be able to do, but I found a better life on the other side of it, which I never could have imagined back then. But whenever I'm around people who are consistently cynical and negative, I can feel it. Like the energy is toxic to me. Yeah, and it's almost like I'm suffocating. I can't be around it. I've got to get away from them because I know I can just feel them sucking the energy out of me.
Yeah.
And I can't live my life like that. Life's too short. Yeah. You know, I want to live my best life. And, you know, a lot of times that means not being around people who aren't enabling me to do that, who are kind of getting in the way and creating that barrier.
Absolutely. Not just embracing the discomfort. That's an important part of, building our resilience.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Now, before we get to your products or services, I'd like people to know more about the book, the training course, the speaking, that kind of thing. Is there anything else you want to add about embracing discomfort?
Well, it's important. I'll go back to one of my 5 pillars of resilience because it's also crucial. The second one which is tell yourself the right stories. I didn't really do that a lot of justice, just to spend a minute adding some context and detail to that. The fact of the matter is, I went blind in my early 20s, and essentially there were two stories that I could have told myself. Mm-hmm. Story number one is that I went blind because I've got really bad luck, right? But instead, I chose to tell myself that I went blind because I'm one of the few people on the planet who has the strength and the toughness to overcome that and use it to help other people. Now, technically, both of those stories could be true. But one story frames me up as a victim. The poor me story, bad luck. This is terrible. Life's coming to an end. Sky's falling. But the second story is a Jedi mind trick that took my disability and reframed it as a strength. I told myself that I went blind because I have uncommon strength. And I could use this to not only help myself, but help other people. And that became my reality. By choosing to tell myself better stories about my circumstances, I built a mental narrative that I could step into that allowed me to thrive in some of the most adverse conditions, not being able to see. And so when you're stepping into uncomfortable situations, what are the stories you're telling yourself about that uncomfortable situation? Are they stories that paint you as a victim, that set you up for failure, or do they take the situation and reframe it in a way that allows you to bounce back better off than before from that uncomfortable situation? Whether we're training on the mat in jiu-jitsu or downhill skiing or traveling wherever in the world or whatever we're doing in life, personally, professionally, every single person listening to this will become their stories. You will become your stories. So you have to make sure that you choose your stories carefully and wisely, because if you create the right mental model and you're telling yourself the right stories and you're choosing your response and you're reimagining a future that's anchored to your reality, but bold enough to inspire you to take action, then you've got the right mental foundation to do the hard work where mindset meets action, which is getting comfortable with discomfort. Mindset meets action there. Obviously, we have to take action, but we have to have the right mental model as we step into that. And so doing those other things, choosing the response and telling yourself the right stories and reimagining your greatness, even in unfavorable circumstances, that gives you the foundation that you need to get comfortable with discomfort where mindset meets action. And then you can continue to incrementally step out of that comfort zone and watch it expand. And that's where growth and innovation take place.
Oh, absolutely. I love it. And I love, I got it from Star Wars, but I'm sure it's others, right? But our perception creates our reality. And that's just perfectly encapsulates that. Yeah.
Yes. We become those stories. Absolutely.
Okay. So how can people learn more about you, your products, your services?
They can visit my website. So I've got my website out there, chadefoster.com / what's this? I forgot the
Essential.
Essential. Thank you. Sorry. chadefoster.com / essential. From there, they'll find all of my social media handles. My book is there as well. There's a book page. They can go on Amazon. It's on Audible. It's at Barnes & Noble, wherever books are sold. It's hardcover. It's audio version, Audible version, as well as Kindle format. Got some information coming on the training course that we're building right now, because I realize not everybody can go to a conference to hear me speak. I do a lot of conferences, but obviously not everybody can make it to a conference. So I'm working on a self-paced online learning training course where folks can take the lessons, from the book, from the keynote, from workshops and things that I do, where I'm teaching corporate leaders and trade industry associations and sales professionals and individuals across various industries how to be more resilient. And so a lot of that will be repackaged and made available so that you don't have to be at a conference to be able to get that information and learn. But yeah, if they go to my website, a lot of information's there. Like I said, all the social media, book, information about speaking, all the things are there. They can sort through that. And if they go to that shortcut that we gave them, that URL at the beginning of this, was it chadefoster.com / essential, there's a worksheet that they can access where they will learn how to shift their mindset about a given situation in their life. So it's a worksheet that I've created to help people reflect and really think through how they can think more resiliently about a given situation in their life.
Nice. We'll also make sure the link is in the episode description.
Beautiful.
Now, before we get to your final piece of advice, I am curious, and if you don't mind answering, I'm sure others will be curious, but what are some things, shall we say, sighted people do that get in your way?
Sighted people do that kind of
like that we're ignorant about, that make life a little harder for you.
It's a really long list.
You're like, do we have time? What are the top ones? That if
I thought you wanted to keep this to 40 minutes or less. No, there's just so many, the assumptions. I think let's just do a quick cover everything. Mm-hmm. The assumptions that people make. And I used to do it too before when I could see. I assumed what a blind person could or couldn't do, what a person with different abilities or different background or different whatever, whether it's, I don't know, pick a characteristic. You just, we have these pre-baked assumptions that we have in our minds based on our own upbringing, and we just project those onto other people. I think the main thing that I would encourage people to do is when you go to make a statement that contains an inherent assumption about somebody else, try and check yourself. Try and see like, hey, wait a minute. Should I really say that? Or maybe I should ask a question instead. And so if we could have just a little more curiosity, a little more humility about our understanding of other people and the journey they've been on, I think it will make life a lot easier for everybody. But I've had people come up to me and ask me, oh, who feeds your dog for you? Or, you can't possibly work. They assume I don't work. Like they didn't know that I've done the things that I've done professionally in my life, whether in the corporate world or speaking and otherwise. And they just assume this inability of me to do certain things, or they assume I'm, sad and depressed or whatever, and it couldn't be further from the truth. They'll come up and say, oh God, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you went blind. And I was like, well, it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. And you could tell they're just like, wait, what did he just say?
Yeah.
And so it's all these different preconceived notions that everybody has. We all have them. I'm guilty too. I'm just more aware of them now than I used to be because I went blind and thought I could imagine what it was like before I went blind. Hey, I could at least imagine what that road's like. And after I went blind, I realized that I had no clue. And so I try to approach everybody, whether it's somebody who's blind or hearing impaired or just different than me, grew up in a different country, different culture, different context. Try to have a little more curiosity, a little more humility, and have a dialogue about it without assuming that I know all the answers.
Nice. Yeah. That's across the board for just humans, right?
Exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So what is your final piece of advice on embracing discomfort today?
The first step is the hardest step, but it's the most consequential one. Start today. Don't put it off until tomorrow. Take the first action today. Even if it's just making the phone call to set up the first appointment, the first meeting, the first whatever. Do it today. Don't wait until tomorrow, because the longer you wait, the harder it gets. Do it now. Take action, because eventually, if you don't take action, you will have that moment in time when you look back on your life and you'll have the regret of not knowing or not doing. And so avoid that regret of future you and take action today.
I love that. Oh, thank you so much for joining us today, Chad.
I've had a good time. Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank you for tuning in to the Essential Skills for Humaning podcast. We hope you've gained valuable insights to enhance your journey as a human being. Remember, practice makes progress. Keep honing those essential skills. And until next time, keep being the best version of yourself. For more resources, visit eanestraining.com.